Well, welcome to Rugby Borough Council's Planning Committee. This Wednesday, the 6th of December, I'm Councillor Tony Gillies, the chair of this committee. The meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, when asked to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction and everyone to hear you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'm obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask that you make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the town hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of November. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous. Second is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. We have an apology from Councillor Caradia, and his substitute this evening is Councillor Mystery, and an apology from Councillor Edwards, who has no substitute.
Thank you. We move on to declarations of interest. Receive declarations of interest is as defined by the Councillors' Code of Conduct for Councillors. Non-pecuniary, and I'll start off by saying Ward Councillor on application number R23/0956. Any other non-pecuniaries? Councillor Linda Garcia.
The same, please.
Thanks. No more non-pecuniaries. OK, we'll move on then. Pecuniary interests? No. And then notice under section 106, Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. And we're all innocent. Well done. OK. We'll then move on to item number 4 of the agenda. And Sam is to present.
Good evening, everyone. This application is for R220602 at the rear of Lodge Farm, Oxford Road in Brighton-on-Dunsmore. And this is for the erection of one commercial production facility for use within Use Class B2 and associated development. Just to note, if this application were to be approved today, the proposed development is required to go to the planning casework unit, and this is due to it being greenbelt development, which consists of a building where the floor space to be created by the development is 1,000 square metres or more. So the application site is the Millboard. It's located within the greenbelt and on the southern side of Oxford Road. The application site is sited within the context of other commercial buildings, including Prologis Park, which opposes the site. There are a small number of residential dwellings within proximity to the site, and the settlement of Brighton-on-Dunsmore, located in the northeastern direction. So here's some site images. Here we have the location of the proposed new unit. As you can see, it's on an area of entirely hard surfaced area. And it is, for the purpose of this assessment, considered to be previously developed. Just to point out as well, the screening at the boundaries of the vegetation which envelopes the site. And just on the right-hand side, you can see the existing larger units. And here are the two existing larger units. As will be revealed in the later slides, these are very similar to the proposal we have today. For context, here's the entrance to the site, and to the front of the site you can see the buildings of a more rural cottage aesthetic which front the site, and just can be made out to the rear is the employment buildings, and as I stated, they sit much deeper into the site and wouldn't be considered of significant prominence. So here we have the proposed site plan. As can be seen, Unit 6, which is the proposed unit, it's of a smaller footprint and sits adjacent to these larger existing units, unit number 4 and 5. Here are the proposed side elevation plans, approximately 69 metres in length, and just to note the roof lights to the roof plane. And the proposed east and west elevations, approximately 6.4 metres to the eaves and 8.5 metres to the ridge, a very similar height to the existing units. In terms of consultation, no technical consultees raise any objections subject to conditions, and no third-party public objections were received. So there is an addendum to the officer report which you've already read, So the reference to the landscape visual assessment within the officer report, referred to as the LVIA, that should have been read as a landscape visual appraisal, which is LVA. Also, 2 documents were not publicised in the original consultation for the planning reference R220602. That's this application. These documents were relevant to 2 planning applications which were received by the council at the same time and are on the same site. This is Unit 2, a separate planning application, and Unit 6, this application. The 2 documents were publicised against the planning application for Unit 2, and therefore these have been available for public viewing. But just for absolute clarity and transparency, these documents have since been publicised against the planning file for R220602, this planning application. And a reconsultation has already commenced, and it will only concern the matters within the 2 documents respectively. Therefore, the recommendation that you'll see for this application has been altered to rectify this matter. Also, the applicant in discussion since the report was published have agreed to implement further sustainability measures into the proposal. This includes electrical vehicle charging points, as well as photovoltaic solar panels, and these will both be put on as part of a condition, as part of the decision notice. So in terms of the key considerations and the principle of development, the application site is within the Greenbelt. Local plan policy GP2 will state only where national policy allows will development be permitted. So in terms of the national policy, paragraph 147 of the MPPF states that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Paragraph 149 of the MPPF sets out the range of exceptions to inappropriate development. It's determined that this proposal does not meet any of the exceptions. Therefore, the proposal must be deemed inappropriate development, and therefore it can't be approved unless very special circumstances apply. In terms of the impact on the openness of the Greenbelt, the proposed unit would be within an existing parcel of built form of the established industrial site and on previously developed land, which greatly reduces, or in some instances, entirely alleviates the harm to the 5 purposes for inclusion of land as Greenbelt. The LPA do accept that by nature of the development, in terms of the scale increase, going from hard standing to a building, there is encroachment into the countryside. This harm will be further assessed within this presentation, and any impacts to the landscape will be weighed against the very special circumstances within the planning balance. So in terms of character and design, the proposed building is considered to be of a large scale. However, the unit is proportional and could be accommodated within the site, and it would be a smaller unit in footprint in comparison to those already existing on site, and are stated it's of a similar height and therefore considered sympathetic to the existing built form. Due to the proposed building's use, the design would be utilitarian in appearance. It uses metal cladding as its main material. The materials chosen are considered to be sympathetic with the employment buildings which exist on the site and could be said to be in character with the employment buildings on the opposing Prologis Park. The specified details of the materials would be safeguarded under Condition 3, which requires the materials to be submitted to the LPA and agreed in writing. In terms of the impact on residential amenity, as shown, the proposal is positioned set back into the site and it's in proximity to the existing units, and therefore it would not be seen to have a further significant negative impact upon residential amenity. In terms of highways, there's been no changes to the existing access, and highways determine there's good forward visibility, enabling sightings of vehicles turning into or out of the existing access. There are 11 extra vehicle movements as part of this proposal, and with the other proposal, which I've previously mentioned, 17 cumulative vehicle movements. The leading highway authority agreed there are acceptable parking standards on site to accommodate the proposal. And the LPA, in cooperation with the highway authority, note the concerns that any significant additional or cumulative development in future may require changes to the vehicle access arrangements for the site, and this could include potential provision of a right turn lane, and this should be included as informative 7, but the assessment of this proposal is one of no objection. Policy DS1 of the local plan sets out the overall employment and housing requirements for the borough. The policy was evidenced by the Employment Land Study 2015, which sets out that 58,300 square metres of floor space for B2 uses is needed. This need is set to be met through the designation of existing employment sites and the provision of new land through allocations. The proposed site is not an allocated employment site. Local Plan Policy ED1 states that infilling or partial or complete redevelopment of existing employment sites will be supported, but this is subject to all other planning matters. And Policy ED3 states that employment development will not be permitted outside the Rugby urban area, but it does then outline a number of exceptions, including redevelopment at a similar scale or of an existing building, or a vacant part of an existing employment site for employment purposes, where this would result in a more effective use of the site. The LPA therefore considered that as the application site is currently in employment use and the proposed new unit would result in a more efficient use of the site, as the occupier would benefit from the recycling of offcuts on site, the proposal would be considered in accordance with policy. Further from this, the Housing and Economic Development Needs Assessment, the HEDNA, indicates a need for B8, B2 and office space use, and this is across Coventry and Warwickshire and does obviously include Rugby. The proposed development would contribute positively towards meeting some of the need that's prescribed in this document. The LPA, however, consider that the HEDNA alone does not provide basis for principle or establish very special circumstances, and therefore that matter has to be balanced against all other planning matters, including the development plan and national policy. Moving on to the landscape, the application is on an area of previously developed land, and therefore significant consideration is given to the fact that the area to be occupied by the proposed unit is hard surfaced and is set well within an area of built form. The main impact, therefore, is that of an introduction of a building of greater height. The applicant has provided a landscape visual appraisal, which offers 22 viewpoints and discusses the magnitude of change and the significance of effects on high sensitivity receptors. The LPA note that attention was paid to the viewpoints offered by the public right-of-way, which is a particular consideration for this assessment. The public right-of-way runs along the western boundary and southern boundary of the existing site, and the LPA agree with the landscape visual appraisal that direct views from the public right-of-way would be limited to the immediate boundary, where filtered views through gaps in fencing of the proposed unit may be possible, or through heavily screened views. Also of assessment is the fact that the proposed development site is visually contained on all sides. This is either by mature vegetation or existing commercial units, which in turn provide screening of direct views into the site. The LPA also considered that due to the existing character and previously developed nature of the surrounding site, that the proposal would be somewhat sympathetic to the existing character which is offered to the landscape. The LPA do, however, require conditions 4 and 9 to be added to any decision notice in agreement with the mitigation measures found within the LVA. So in assessment of the planning balance, the proposal scheme is considered inappropriate development within the green belt, and as such, it is not acceptable unless there are very special circumstances. The LPA's further assessment has identified the harm to the openness of the green belt as less than significant due to the existing built form, screening at the boundaries, and the nature of the proposal site within an existing industrial site, although it is within the green belt. So in assessment of the three overarching principles of sustainable development, in terms of the economic benefits, the proposed development represents an investment into the borough, providing new employment opportunities, including the short term, in which the proposal will provide employment opportunities for the construction phase. The unit under assessment would aid in the recycling of offcuts within the production process, which would eliminate waste and increase the sustainability, and in turn increase the overall efficiency of production in response to demand for the mill board. If this application were to be used and the applicants, if this application were to be refused and the applicants were required to use an off-site location, it is considered that the production cost would increase, and therefore the beneficial impact on economic growth, which is viewed favourably by national policy, would be removed. In terms of the environmental factors, no significant adverse impacts to the proposed development in relation to ecology, highway safety, traffic flows, flood risk, drainage, air quality, noise, contamination, light and residential amenity were identified, and where adverse impacts were identified, conditions of mitigation are in place as part of the decision notice. The proposal offers a number of sustainability measures, including PV panels, a biodiversity net gain and EV charging points, as well as the rationale for the increased reuse of waste material in the form of offcuts on the site. Again, we must consider the fallback position of the applicant's use of an off-site location for the recycling of the offcuts. The unit being provided on site reduces the logistics and transport element of the production process if the off-site unit were to be required to be used. This also has the positive multiplier effect of reducing impacts to the existing highway network and obviously the associated emissions. In terms of the social benefits, the proposed development of this part of the site would bring this part of the site into active economic use and in turn provide new jobs to the borough. The provision of job security would provide and play a key role in helping improve and safeguard mental health and well-being. So in consideration of establishing very special circumstances in this case, very special circumstances are not one matter to be viewed in isolation, and instead a cumulative reflection on whether the proposed developments, environmental, economic and social benefits would outweigh the identified harm and inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. In assessment, the development proposal would provide economic, environmental and social benefits which would aid and assist in contributing to the NPPF's focus on building a strong competitive economy and supporting a prosperous rural economy. The proposal would also offer the opportunity for the mill board to sustainably meet demands through the reuse of off-cut material without requiring the negative impacts of the increase in freight movement via HGV. Indeed, it is considered that the balance of the demand and recycling of material on site against the reduced impacts to the environment would be struck overall through the provision of the unit on site. When this is assessed against the harm visually, due to the mitigation through screening and the context of the existing built form, the impact of the landscape is considered harmful, however, would not be considered significantly harmful. Overall, it is therefore considered that due to this unique case, the very special circumstances do outweigh the inappropriate development with the green belt. Therefore, the recommendation is approval, and as previously stated, this is subject to no new significant material planning considerations being raised in relation to the additional supporting information and landscape visual appraisal by the 22nd of December 2023, a referral to the planning casework unit and to the conditions and informatives on the decision notes you've seen and as mentioned on the slide. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sam, for that very comprehensive report there. Do we have any points of clarification for the officer? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. Just got a few questions around the environmental side to this. And so I'll run through a few points and then if you could take them all together, I think. Firstly, the building is metal clad. So what is its thermal efficiency as the building? It has got windows through the roof structure, which seems to limit its ability to have solar panels on the roof. But so the overall question there is, you know, we are in a climate change emergency. We've declared one as a council. Is this building going to be carbon neutral, in fact, better than that? And that's what we would be seeking, given this would be in the Greenbelt area.
Yeah, so just in terms of the roof plane, potentially that is maybe subject to change, but we do have to take the plans just because since then the applicants have obviously said they're going to put PV panels on. They are going to go somewhere. Whether that means the roof lights are changed or not, I don't know, but I do take your point. In terms of the thermal efficiency, although that is something of consideration at the planning stage, for this type of buildings, I believe that building regulations do set a standard for an industrial unit of this scale. And in that case, I think the BREEAM standards for the building regulations would ensure. Is it very good? It's not. It's very good that they would require the building to be. So at the very least, you're going to get a building that is a very good. Now, I don't have a commitment from the developer that it's going to be above that, so I can't give you that at the moment. But what I can give you that building regulations will require this building to be built up to very good standards.
Just for you, Chair, just for a point of note, really, for the question that was raised by the councillor. The Prologis buildings on the opposite side, which are also metal clad, I know, because I dealt with that site, that when they did the BREEAM test for those, they were getting above very good. So I do know that there is the technology out there to actually achieve it with the metal clad. And some of those I think have got roof lights on as well for natural light, although except they haven't got PV panels on, or not at the time the application came through. So I think they should be able to achieve, because it's a policy requirement as well, that it is very good as well in our standards as well as building regs. So we should have comfort they can achieve that.
Bearing in mind, of course, with the roof lighting, the technology now is able to reduce the amount of artificial light within inside the building during very bright operating days, and I've done certain schemes myself for various operators, and you can reduce the energy use through lighting probably more than 50% with the appropriate roof lights. Any more points of clarification for anybody? No? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to double check, what's the hard standing used for at the minute?
When I visited the site, so obviously it's subject to change since the office are going, and when I was there it was used for storage, stacking of storage. It appeared to be pallets at some level. There were some vehicles parked there, but effectively just part used in cooperation with the buildings as existing. So it is used as part of the process at the moment. But yeah, I think there was stacking on there when I visited the site.
In that case, then we'll move into the debate. I don't mind from the chair for proposing approval for this. Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. Given the Hebner impact, the location of this, particularly in terms of the local plan as it's been considered, yes, I would second the motion to approve.
Okay, have we got any further speakers? Or Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can obviously thank the officer for a very detailed report. That was exceptional. In terms of the use of the site and the sustainability of the site, I think the applicant has pretty much proven that. And clearly, if some of this chipboard's actually going to be recycled on site as well, it's a double win for us in terms of sustainability and climate change. So I'm more than happy to support the application, Chair.
Okay, if we've got no further speakers, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of approval, please show. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Sam. We'll move on next to R230956, which is Beach Building Unit 1 Anstey Park and this is with Lucy.
Application R230095, as the chair has pointed out, is at the Beach Building, Unit 1 at Anstey Park, off Draken Drive. The application is for advertisement consent for the installation of 2 fascia signs and 2 freestanding totem signs. The application was called in for consideration by Councillor Timms based on impact on the green belt and the night sky. The building was previously occupied by Sainsbury's, with signage on the building and directional signage on site. The application proposes 2 fascia signs on the building, 1 each on the south and on the west elevation of the illuminated Polestar logo, an important aspect of Polestar's wider corporate identity. One will face the car park in front of the building and the other towards Central Boulevard, and the 2 freestanding totem signs are proposed for wayfinding from each car park access. Paragraph 136 of the MPPF states that the quality and character of areas can suffer when advertisements are poorly cited and designed. A separate consent process within the planning system controls the display of advertisements, which should be operated in a way which is simple, efficient and effective. The advertisement regulations, associated guidance and the MPPF state that the advertisement should be subject to control only in the interest of amenity and public safety, taking into account of cumulative effects. Further to the site location plan that I showed in the previous slide, I have highlighted in orange, this is where Unit 1 is. One of the fascia signs is on this elevation facing the car park, and the second is on this side elevation towards Central Boulevard. This shows the building on the slide set within the wider site and the surrounding building structures and street lighting that's already there. In terms of some site photographs, this is the front elevation of the building towards the car park where one of the fascia signs is proposed. The one on the left is a Google image of the site, as it currently has scaffolding around the building as shown on the right, as renovations are taking place at the building for the office refit and alterations. Then additionally I have the side elevation, which is where the second fascia sign is proposed. These would be aluminium carcass powder coated white, an illuminated opal white acrylic face. It's a tongue twister. So you can see the side elevation. This is from the pedestrian pathway accessed from Central Boulevard towards the car park area in the previous slide. And then this is just to highlight what can be viewed of the area if you're on the road of Central Boulevard going through the site. The freestanding totem signs are proposed at the entrance on Draken Drive and at the car park entrance on Wigan Way. The purpose of the totem signs at the key junctions within the site is to enable staff and visitors to find their way to parking and appropriate entrances. Then I have the site plan and the elevations. Due to the way they're drawn, it's maybe not that easy to see, but you can see here and here are where the Polestar logo is proposed within the centre of each elevation. They would be fixed to the external building facade and measure 4.5 metres by 4.5 metres. The bottom of the logo is 6 metres above ground level. They would be static LED on a timer from sunset to sunrise. Then the totem signs are glass light box with a text height of 80 millimetres. They are also static LED on a timer from sunset to sunrise. They would be 90 centimetres tall with a length of 1.8 metres and a depth of 25 centimetres. In terms of the fascia sign, again as it's white, we haven't chosen the best background, but again it's the Polestar logo and there's some illustrative images provided below. I've also had the agent has provided an example of the logo on a building currently on Watling Street in Nuneaton, just for reference. The position, size and design of the proposed signage is in keeping with the scale and character of the building and its surroundings, and it's considered will not detract from the appearance of the premises or have an adverse impact on the visual amenities of the immediate locality or wider environment. The proposed illumination is considered in compliance with Zone 3 requirements as outlined in the report, and is therefore considered that the advertisements proposed will not have a significantly detrimental impact on the visual amenity of the locality in accordance with policy SDC1. Warwickshire County Council Highways have confirmed that they have no objection to the proposed advertisements or illuminance levels, and as such are not considered to result in highway safety issues. Environmental Health have also provided no objection. Therefore, as detailed, the only issues to be considered in the determination of advertisement applications are amenity or public safety. It is not considered that the proposed advertisement signage will have an adverse impact on amenity or public safety, and the proposals are therefore considered acceptable, with a recommendation to the committee this evening for the application to be approved, subject to the conditions and informative set out in the draft decision notice appended to the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lucy. Any points of clarification? Councillor Lawrence.
To do with the LED lighting and the fact that it's on all night, is there any reason given for the reason they need to have that on at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I wasn't provided with a specific reason as to why it would be on at the times that it was, just that the illuminance of the logo was key to Polestar as part of their corporate worldwide identity.
Any other points of clarification? Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, Chair. These are usually a delegated matter that the officers deal with. I noticed one of the usual suspects called it into committee. Were we looking to... I mean, I really can't see why it's there, why it's actually come to committee.
I think, just to respond to that from the Chair, that we've had issues with loading bay lights on one building, which are shining very brightly across 1.5 miles of countryside straight across the green belt, which are offensive. I know they're trying to work on that to try and mitigate the effect of that. But that was one of the concerns I had regarding the logo signs mounted high on the building, and it was pointed out on the slides that those direct views to those logos are obscured by the buildings, so there's no actual direct view of them across the countryside.
But that could have been obscured by planting, but presumably that should have been done when that rather large building was built rather than later.
Right, so if no more points of clarification, shall we just move on to the debate? And does anybody want to start the debate rolling? Councillor Mrs Garcia.
Well, I will. I mean, I do agree that the light seems to be on for quite a long time when the street lights go off at 12 o'clock, but I guess that's down to the people that are paying the bills, I suppose. And so as it is obscured and it isn't in the face of any houses, then I'll go forward and propose it.
Can you just do that on the live mic?
I'll second that.
Okay. Have we got any further speakers on that? Councillor Lawrence.
I do feel as if there needs to be an informative about reducing. They don't need to have this on all night, so I see no reason for them having it on all night. It is using up power. It is spoiling the area. This is just on the verge of Greenbelt. The sensitivity of the area is because there's a Grade 1 listed building in not too far away from it. So I feel as if Polestar could actually be a bit more generous and not hold it on all night for no purpose.
Something we could add as a condition, that it would have sort of a time limit to it, so the small hours of the morning.
I mean, obviously through you, Chair, Polestar have been, I think, quite clear that it's part of their corporate identity that they want that on. Obviously, it's you are the decision makers here. I mean, we can obviously impose an informative that advises them that, in the interests of the environment and, the green credentials, I guess, as any company that we see coming into the borough, that they give consideration to limiting it during I suppose those nighttime hours that have been suggested. I'm assuming it is a 24/7 operation, so it could be that people are coming and going, and there are people coming and going from that site, not necessarily the Polestar site, but other sites, such as the LEVC one to the south. But obviously, we wouldn't necessarily enforce it unless we actually had a specific condition, but we could obviously try and appeal to their perhaps green credential side.
Are members in agreement with that? Would be okay with that? All right, with that amendment, then could we move to the vote then, if there's no more speakers? All those in favour, please show. And once again, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, in that case then we'll move on to item 5, which is advance notice of site visits.
No further site visits.
In that case then item 6, delegated decisions. No questions on delegated decisions? Okay, in that case then the meeting is called to a close. Thank you.